Here at GMBN, we don't want you to think we're immune to the odd riding mistake now and again. In fact, we want to celebrate the moments when we've got it wrong, but somehow or another we escaped through to tell the tale another day. So here are the top 10 presenter crashes that spring to mind, either because they're epic, lucky,
whoa, 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 whoa,
or just plain stupid. What a way to make an impression on your first day. You know, many presenters have had to face the camera on that first day, and that is always nerve-wracking. But when it comes to riding in front of the fellow GMBN presenters, well, that's when the pressure really takes hold. Doddy found that out on his first outing as a GMBN presenter, having a memorable fall that saw him disappear into the wilderness. Absolutely classic. Don't feel bad though, Doddy. You aren't the only GMBN presenter to buckle under the pressure, as you'll see coming up a bit later.
Well, there's two answers to this crash, really. The first one is I'm just an expert at crashing. After all these years of mountain biking, I know exactly where to crash, and look at that for a perfect spot. A nice blanket of ferns to take the impact. But from a tech point of view, I reckon there's something else to bring in. Now, no one's going to listen to me on this because I crashed fair and square, but I reckon if I was on a bike that properly fit me, it might not have happened. The reach on that bike was 470, I think. It might have been 480. Either way, tiny for a size extra large. Bearing in mind that I'd been at GMBN for a few weeks and that was my first bike I had with them. My other bike, which I still had at the time, but I wasn't allowed to ride it because of our sponsor obligations, was my old Mondraker. That at the time had a reach of about 510, so that bike was absolutely giant by comparison. And in honesty, I hadn't dialed into the bike. That was pretty much one of the first times I rode it, and I just got it wrong. But yeah, I'm going to blame the bike. Of course I am.
This riding exploit is more of an anecdote than a video review. We don't have the film evidence, but by all accounts Neil was very lucky to come out of this argument with the front end of a car. Whilst road riding, Neil overshot a corner at high speed, riding into oncoming traffic that resulted in exactly what you'd imagine. Some of the images show just how lucky he was. After a few weeks in hospital and a lot of appointments at the dentist, Neil can now look back and laugh, with a few less teeth. But it was very nearly a different story. Glad you're still with us, buddy.
Well, yeah, the road bike crash. It was a downhill hairpin that got tighter, completely caught me out, and I ended up on the wrong side of the road and hit a car. No video for that one, but a lot of injuries. I had a brain bleed, a broken jaw, broken nose, broken teeth. Sort of this muscle's gone a bit funny on my chest. I had a big sort of I call it a cut, I suppose, where my top tube went into my thigh. Got a big scar there, broken ankle. That was it.
You might think there is a trend building here. Neil is just one of those riders that takes his riding to the edge. He isn't crazy, just very determined to use his deep knowledge and skills to their full potential. So when he rides, he really goes for it, and man is he fast. Even on this gentle ride out with Blake, he couldn't help but push the front end through this turn. Unfortunately, the front gave, and before he knew it, Neil was eating dirt, quite literally. However, being the absolute trooper he is meant he popped right back up, wiped away the excess blood, and got back on with the job. Yep. Neil again. This crash really isn't much to talk of. The Andes Pacifica is a race where traction is a major feature. Well, the lack of traction is a major feature anyway. You don't go to that race and not really crash. At some point, you will overcook it and find the limit of grip. On this stage, Neil did exactly that. And other than it being a jarring crash, you may be forgiven for thinking it wasn't much. However, Neil was immediately out of the running, and as the night played out, things got serious. The hematoma on his leg was actually compartment syndrome, a lot more serious, and this would require emergency surgery and hospitalisation in Chile for 7 days, and 2 more surgeries. Nasty. Now over to Blake Sampson for a tough one. You see, following Neil is never easy, and following him on this trail was even harder than usual. That's what Blake discovered when he chased Neil down this slippy trail. Looks like such a simple bit of riding, especially for someone of Blake's ability. However, the takeoff over this gap didn't go as planned, and Blake never looked right through the entire jump. He just couldn't save this one. When he did hit the ground, Blake took most of the impact on his hands, a big mistake that could have broken both his wrists. In fact, that's exactly what Blake thought he'd done at first. Luckily, it was just bruising. Ouch.
You are correct, Mark. It did not go to plan whatsoever. Coming off this road gap, it was a right-hander into a left-hander straight off this road gap. And Neil and I stopped and looked at it and we were like, I reckon we could gap it. But deep down in my brain, I was like, yeah, Neil, you could gap it, but I can't gap this thing. It's quite gnarly. The run-in was just terrible. It was wet, rainy, and I didn't come in with enough confidence. That was the thing I had to learn from that, is going confidently into a situation where you can do it. But no, it caught me by surprise. Just like that, flump, sideways off the jump, landed sideways, hands out, scorpioned on the ground, got up, my hands were hurting. I learned a lesson that day. Don't follow Neil into some sketchy ass stuff.
This one is from way back in the GMBN archives when Blake rode with the legendary and very tall Martin Soderstrom, whilst challenging each other to an interesting set of freeride challenges that included bunny hops, manuals and slopestyle, but also a bit of speed work against the clock. Blake took his chance to try and smash Martin, and he got caught out by a very nasty tree. It nearly resulted in Blake taking himself out and some more woodwork, but fortunately he managed to stop just in time. You can tell from Martin's reaction that this was a nasty one and a very close call. Man, Martin is really tall. To another Martin now, me to be exact. Back in 2016 I decided it was time to take my riding to the mecca of mountain biking, Whistler Bike Park. I did it in the middle of Crankworx Week 2, so it was all happening. The whole crew was involved in making this trip work, and I learned so much. Whilst riding, I couldn't help get carried away, however. I knew I was pushing, and with that in mind, I was really on top of my front wheel grip. I knew if I pushed that front wheel too hard, then any turn on this amazing trail could be the final one. What I didn't expect was for the rear wheel to break away like it could, and did. As soon as that sucker changed my angle, there was no stopping the outcome. I was in that ditch before I knew it. Thankfully, both DODDY and Blake were there to catch me. Problem with the random tandem: at some point someone is going to drop you or leave you in the lurch. This bike is treacherous most of the time. If your riding partner isn't on their game, well, you're in trouble. I found that out with both Rob and Mark Frelfel too. Not really a crash, but being dropped never feels great. Although in this case, at least it was funny. Even the towering Rob Warner couldn't hold me up once I'd passed that balance point. In fact, this tumble completely bent the steerer tube of the bike, and Rob rode it like that for the rest of the day.
Oh no, oh no, oh no, God no, no, God no. God, you're strong. No, mate. What have you done?
I think the handlebars are going to snap.
Oh no.
Rob also liked to leave me on the bike on purpose too.
You dickhead!
Isn't that just like him? Henry is going to hate me for bringing this one up. It's been shown to death. However, the footage lives on, and here is Henry in all his stage 1 of the Andes Pacifico 2020 glory. Nerves, tension, excitement are coursing through the veins of our brave adventurer. The riders behind are looking to him for inspiration and competition. And away Henry goes. The Odyssey awaits. Ah, there it is again. I keep expecting Henry to make that corner and ride away in triumph. However, it never happens. He always ends up in that pile of dust. Not a fair representation of our man Henry here, but let's enjoy it nonetheless.
That crash in Chile was undoubtedly one of the most embarrassing moments of my entire life. It was a bit like stalling when you're the first one in a long line of traffic, and oh, It was just horrific, but you've got to laugh, it's pretty funny. Still don't know really what happened. I just got on the power. It was quite deep top surface of sand, and I think there might have been a rock or something underneath because I just lost the front. And yeah, but I laughed straight away. I mean, you can't do anything but yeah, shame all the cameras were there, and hopefully this is the last time I have to go over it, because yeah, just mortifying.
Now, Rich may have only been with GMBN for a few months now, but he's really got stuck in, taking part in huge enduro events like the Andes Pacifico. When he's not racing, he's often out in the woods filming content for all you guys to watch. That being said, it doesn't slow him down no matter what the conditions are like. He's always in full race mode. This is one of those crashes that you can feel from just watching it.
Oh. Man down.
And it was the last run of what looks like a very miserable day. Rich pins it round the corner and the front end just washes out, flinging him over the handlebars and wrapping himself around a tree stump. Ouch! One thing to take from this is never say, one more run. This looks like a classic bit of EMBN climbing action. E-bikes these days are so capable of riding hard technical ascents that Chris and Steve can't help but looking for a slab to ride. Chris found a beauty on a recent trip to El Chorro in Spain. But watch this crash and see if you can notice what happens.
You alright? Yeah. You alright? Yeah.
What was that?
My finger, end of my finger.
There's the moment when this turned from a very gentle crash to a very nasty moment. Chris gets wedged between his saddle and the top tube and flips over, the handlebars coming down, crashing and nearly chopping Chris's finger clean off. A few millimetres difference would have seen Chris emerge unscathed.
I think he's alright.
You sure?
It did do some nasty nerve damage, and that's not proving that easy for Chris to move on from, but thankfully he still has a finger and he can heal. The other option would have been very unfortunate. So there you go, GMBN at its best, or worst. Depends on how you look at it. If you have had a crash recently and you happen to get it on camera, then why not send it over to our GMBN uploader? You could see yourself on our Fails and Send segment of the Dirt Shed show, or maybe even part of the Fails and Bells monthly roundup of crashes. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there on your bike. Make sure you follow us here on GMBN and subscribe, and if you want to love, like or share on any of the social platforms, we'd love that too. See you next time.